Well, that whole notion of outworking, being able to outwork anybody really came to a screeching halt for me when I was diagnosed with lupus, my second year of being a vice president.
Welcome back to the Release Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tafana Irvin, and today I am so excited to be joined with someone I admire and really look up to in this field of post-secondary higher education, Dr. Sheila Edwards-Lang. Before I give a moment for Dr. Lang to just share a little bit about herself and her journey, I want to take a moment and just say thank you all. I am overwhelmed by the support, by the liking, the subscribing, the sharing of the podcast so far. I think what you all are illustrating for me is that we do need this space, that this is something people really are eager to be able to feel open and accessible to. And I think what we are building is going to be something pretty amazing. So thank you all for it. Keep it up, because the more that you like, the more that you share, the more that we get traction. And who knows, we could take this far. With that, though, I want to welcome us today on this topic of learning. So one of the things that I've begun really exploring in my own journey is I haven't taken stock in some of the lessons that are happening in real time. I've just kept moving. I've just keep going. I just say, okay, I'll deal with that another day, but the another day hasn't come. Mm-hmm. And as we were just talking right before this, I was sharing that I just need a moment. And I think a lot of us, particularly in leadership, particularly in today's current condition, we just need a minute to be reflective and to understand the patterns of what is happening so that we can take those lessons into the future. And so Dr. Sheila Edwards-Lang is the Chancellor of the University of Washington, Tacoma. She's also my boss, y'all. Let me be very clear.
If anyone could really be your boss.
I didn't say it, but she really is my boss. She's one of my board members with my organization, the Foundation for Tacoma Students. And again, she's a woman that I admire, someone who's been in the field for a very long time, who has made really great waves in access and opportunity for historically and perpetually marginalized students, but also really thinking and trying to be innovative around how do we expand learning opportunities for everyone so that we can have a more diverse and thriving community. So Sheila, welcome to the couch.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, we're so excited.
A little nervous because I've never done anything like this before.
Oh, don't be.
Okay.
And if you need to, grab your emotional beverage. It'll help you along
Always.
the way.
Thank you.
And happy Pride.
Oh,
I know
yes.
You have something to do right after this.
I'm on my way to Pride. Tacoma's Pride is at Wright Park today.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. Well, we will definitely get right into it. Again, we're talking about learning. And I think so we had a dinner not too long ago, right? Mm-hmm. We were sitting down and we were supposed to talk shop. I don't know if we ever got to
I don't think we ever got to work.
But what was interesting for me in that moment was just the natural releasing that was happening. And I think I said to you then, this is exactly why I want to do a podcast. I want to be able to not only learn and hear from stories like you shared, but then also to be able to say, how do we take moments for ourselves to be reflective so that we can be better for it? And you don't have to jump into it right now. And certainly I want you to share what you're comfortable sharing. But I think that was the reason why we wanted to get you here to talk a little bit about the journey of leadership. How has that been for you? What is something that you've learned the hard way as you've been in this role?
Well, thank you. It's really interesting because as we were talking, there's a certain level of trust that has to be in place in order to open up. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of leaders are in position where you're not quite sure how much you can trust, especially in the public sphere. Yeah. And because I have grown from a professional relationship with you to one where I consider you my friend, it was really easy to just sort of, open up.
Yeah.
And I think that having that moment of reflection doesn't come often for a lot of people in leadership. You just, frankly, don't have time because you're, at least in my case, you're working all the time, then you're going home, taking care of home. And I have a husband with a traumatic brain injury, so there's a lot of taking care that happens there. So it's just, trying to manage it all becomes having taking time to release almost feels like a luxury.
Yeah.
It
I
really
was
is.
just saying that to someone. Like, it's a privilege.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And especially as a Black woman, a lot of times you just got to keep on going. And I think one of the things in my journey to the leadership, because I wasn't always, as focused as I am now.
Sure.
I think I was a focused kid. I was a really smart kid, but didn't have the idea of where I wanted to go. Went to college thinking, oh, maybe I'll be a doctor because I was good at math and science, and people said that's what I should do. But then worked in a hospital, and it's like, oh, I really don't like being around sick people. So then it's like, well, what am I going to do? But throughout it all has always been this sort of core strength that it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter who you know. If you don't put in the work, whatever it is that you want to do, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And came to that realization in college when I was struggling, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, mostly doing a lot of partying. Well,
talk about that too.
Well, I grew up in a very conservative religious household.
Okay.
And so when I went to college, I was like, oh,
Freedom.
Yes, I want to have all the fun I want to have. Yeah. And then if I like something, I would do it like multiple times.
Sure.
So, trying to also be the responsible kid, because I was always the responsible kid, thinking, you just can't party all the time. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? How are you going to get there? And so the lesson has always been staying focused on the work.
Yeah.
Thinking about there's always something, there's always a goal, there's always something better, a situation that you could be in that could be better than where you are. Because having grown up really poor, single mom, on welfare, in public housing, I knew I didn't want to go back to that. I used to say, oh my gosh, no matter how bad I'm doing, I cannot go back to Lula Pearl's house.
And will not. Right? Yeah.
It's like, I will not be in Lula Pearl's house. So even as I was screwing up at times, I was always like, okay, you got to get back on track, because otherwise you're going to end up at Lula Pearl's house. And that's not what you want.
Yeah. It's funny because I was just having this conversation. We were playing Family Uno, and if any other household is like ours, it gets really heated really fast. But sometimes we take it to like real levels of learning. And we were having this conversation about like, our children have a different baseline than we have. And we have higher expectations for them. And, my oldest said, you always compare us to the worst possible outcome, which is not unlike what you just said. I'm like, do you want to end up like X, Y, Z? Like, is that what you really want? He goes, you always make it seem like that's what's going to happen, but we're still learning and growing. And there was a moment in that I had to say like, okay, the fear that I have of failure for you is over like shadowing the fact that you are still trying to figure it out. You're still learning, you're still growing. And in that moment, it was a lesson for me to take from my 19-year-old son, who's just like, take a beat. And I'm just like, God, I'm trying. Like, I promise you, I'm trying.
But I think what the alternatives are if they don't stay on a path.
For sure.
Because you're in the business. For sure. And then if you're like me, you grew up with people and you see, like my best friend from high school ended up a crack addict with, multiple kids, multiple people living with her mom on and off the street. And so, from experience, what could happen if kids if they don't have aspirations or dreams or things for themselves other than what you want for them.
And I tried to characterize it in this lack of drive or ambition. And I think that what I was learning in that conversation was he's not lacking, or they rather are not lacking drive or ambition. They're just unsure of what to drive toward, what they should be ambitious for, because there's so much available to them. And I think it's an interesting way for me to try to say, like, yeah, the world is your oyster, as they say. You can do and be whatever you want. But also, there's still a limited amount of opportunities that are going to be available to you, particularly as a Black man. And so, how do we try to, like, balance both ends? And I think it was just interesting to kind of hear that. But I would, circle back to say, like, I never wanted to go back to my mom's house either. I remember in college, she and I had this big fight because I wanted to stay with my aunt for the summer than to go stay with her. She just couldn't understand why. And while that's not for this show today, I think that's for a future conversation. There is something about this feeling of regressing. Like, if I go back to my environment that had harmed me growing up, that was really difficult to get out of, like, would I find myself retreating back to that? And I think that that is a little bit of the grounding for this conversation too, right? This, how do you build trust with folks to be able to have the time to release and get to really the root of why maybe making decisions today are hard, or maybe get to the root of why being a leader and being in the space that you're in is really difficult today.
It's interesting you say that. When I went to college at 17, and I never went back home. I mean, I never spent any summers there. I worked. I stayed in the city where I went to undergrad and worked. I just never went back home. And in fact, the summer before I moved to Seattle to go to graduate school, I was packing up my stuff, and I went to my mom's house for 3 weeks. That's the longest I'd been at my mom's house since I was 17 years old. And it was a transition of me moving out of state. And after that, I would go home 3 or 4 times a year, but I never spent that much time ever again. But it was just like you said, the chaos of growing up in a sort of dysfunctional, people coming in and out of the house, just a lot of stuff going on. I was like, I never wanted to go back to that.
So fast forward, you are this well-renowned, really influential chancellor of a public research one institution, University of Washington, Tacoma. You've had to do a lot over your career span to get here today. And as such, people expect you to show up a certain way. They expect you to respond and behave a certain way. They expect you to probably answer questions that they've already answered for themselves according to their beliefs or understandings and perspectives. But as a chancellor, you have to make really informed, really diligent, thoughtful, discerning questions. I'm curious, with the title that you hold, the position that you have in this community and really in the field of higher education, what is some weight that you carry that people just don't see?
I tell people all the time, I have this very formal job, but I am not a formal person at all. And so I'm always balancing that. I was fortunate that I had a mentor very early in my career, African-American woman, who was just outrageous. She was, and she's a very good friend still. But she'd come in, she'd just say whatever she wanted to say. She was just herself. She was so authentic. And I was like, I want to be like that. I want to be, and to be able to be in a leadership role and still be my authentic self, even though people have all of these expectations of, because I was a college president before I came down here as a chancellor. There are all these expectations of how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to show up, how you're supposed to engage. And I'm like, most of that is just not me. So I try to show up as my authentic self, and I'm goofy. I tell people I am like the biggest nerd ever. I have jokes that nobody else finds funny except for maybe my husband occasionally. But I remember when I got to graduate school, and the dean of our program was an African-American man, and he was on a panel, and someone asked, how do you stay humble, or how do you stay grounded? And his answer was one that stuck with me because it's true for me too. He says, I just spend time with my family. He says, because they don't see me as Dr. So-and-so.
For sure.
In fact, they will just really humble you the more you spend time with them.
Look. Yeah.
And I thought, oh, okay, that's it. Never forget where you come from, even though I never wanted to go back there to live. Never forget where you come from, because that will keep you grounded.
It will keep you grounded. My middle son, shout out to Christian, he's a character. He will say often, "Doctor for what?" You don't know, blah, blah, blah. You don't know. And I'm like, first of all, get out of my face. But they do. They humble you. And I think that is important. I think that's necessary. But I want to, I'm gonna try to dig here. Yeah. So tell me if you want to go. And I'll start by sharing my own experience. In this podcast, what I'm also beginning to do is develop what I'm calling this release method. I believe that there are ways in which unconventionally we can get to healing, even as leaders, high-performing, high-functioning leaders, that we can get to a place of better understanding how to manage and process all that's happening. But we have to be willing to do the work. Yeah. Doing the work is acknowledging, it's, interrogating. I think there is discerning and learning, growing that happens in order for us to heal. I want to speak about an incident. It was a summer retreat that I had with my staff. And I couldn't make this up if I tried.
Which is what happens a lot of
right? I couldn't make this up if I tried.
Write a book when I retire. Because no one will believe that this
nobody. And even if I write the book, I'm wondering, did she make that up? I promise you.
It really
I tell no lies. But one of the things that happened, we had just expanded our staff. So I probably doubled the team, and I had new team members who knew nothing about the work, nothing about what we're trying to do. But in order, in my opinion, as a leader, to get my team to high functioning capacity, I need them to have trust and comfortability with one another. So we did this retreat. I had one staff member who had a sister-in-law that was shot in the head at a underground race car show and died days later at Harborview. That same retreat, I had a coworker whose sister had a heart attack and had to have an emergency bypass surgery. In that same retreat, I had another coworker whose uncle had also just had a heart attack. And as we're dealing with these challenges with the staff, and as we're trying to build this camaraderie, if you will, amongst the team, it was hard because some left, some were emotional, some were crying. And it's like, okay, how do you begin to bring this team together? But all the while, my mom had also just been hospitalized during that retreat, had just had a major surgery, was on the CDC list of quarantine because they found some disease they'd never heard of before. Wow. And as her power of attorney, as the person who cares for her holistically, doctors are calling and saying, here's what we need and what we do. I'm managing all of this at a time where I'm trying to build what I believe is a solid team to come out and do really great work for the community. And there was a moment that I went into my room and I just lost it. I'm like ugly crying, like what? It's got right, and no one knew, right? No one on the team had any idea because it wasn't my place as a leader to share my struggles, right? Like as a leader, we often have to hide what we're going through. We have to not give in to vulnerabilities because our team has so many vulnerabilities and we have to be caretakers for them. And so I carried that. And I will say then shortly after that, I had my oldest son who was preparing to leave for college and had this camp to go to. And boy, that was another story for another day, but he and his dad are exactly the same, but they don't want to admit it. And so they butt heads. And so I'm mediating the whole time. I'm like, you know what, guys, I don't have to, right? Like all of these things that you're managing. But I'm carrying all this while trying to deliver an effective retreat, building an organization to try to get us to where we need it to be. And it was heavy. It was very heavy.
Always.
I wonder, like, do you have heavy moments like that, or am I alone?
God. Wait, how much time do we have?
No, we got enough.
Because, I think about when I I didn't really set out to be a college president. I just wanted to do education policy. I thought, I want to make sure that more kids that look like me, from backgrounds like me, could get access to education, because I felt like education would be the key to sort of economic stability, which is what I never had growing up. So I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. And then, fast forward, I, through a series of things, ended up in a vice president's role, and then ended up in this going to be a college president. My first week on the job, my stepson has addiction issues. And so I come home from work. He is in the backyard with a tent and a bunch of other addicts in our backyard in a multi-million-dollar neighborhood. The neighbors are losing their minds. My husband has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. And I'm like, and I've got to go and be a president, build a team, because I think I had 4 or 5 vice presidents, and 3 of them were vacant. So I had to build a team, do all this stuff. It's like, I go to work. It's like, I gotta do all this and then come home and deal with, radiation, cancer issues, and then addiction issues, and trying to figure out what we're gonna do with our stepson. It was, and then that doesn't even take into account what was happening with my family, my mom and my sisters in California. I think you end up, I learned very early to compartmentalize. And so it's like, okay, this is what I need to deal with here. And then I'm going to have to deal with it, because I told you early on, I learned very, very early, you got to put into work if you want stuff to happen. So it's like, okay, I've got to deal with this, but I also got to hire a team. The president at the college before me had left abruptly, and there was just a lot of morale issues on campus. There were a lot of financial issues on campus that I had to deal with. And so you just, that's what Mama said, you pull up your big girl panties and get to work. And no matter what's going on in your life. Now, I will say that one of the things I also learned early on is a job can never be, it's important, but it can never be the center of my universe. So I have a group of girlfriends who are my rock. None of them are in higher ed, which is good, because I can vent about what's happening on campus, and they can sort of sympathize, but the most part, they just love me unconditionally. And so I've always felt like I've had a good, solid network of folks who love me unconditionally outside of my job, and who had a lot of faith in me, in my ability to do my job, but also my ability to be a good friend, to be a good wife, to be a good stepmom, to be a good community member. And so, Lord, oh my God. I was on the phone this morning with one of my girlfriends, and we were laughing. Is
that why you was late?
No, I was late because I was trying to clean my house.
I'm kidding.
Trying to clean my house was crazy, because I had all these girls over for dinner last night with their families. But work is important, but taking care of me and making sure that I have a support system has also just really been important. And that's how I've gotten through whatever has gone. I mean, we've had, my husband had cancer, and then he now has a traumatic brain injury with like short-term memory loss. So he's able to be on his own, but he gets lost easily, he gets confused easily. Like this morning, he woke me up at 7 o'clock saying, "What are we having for dinner?" I'm like, "It's 7 in the morning. I'm still asleep. I don't know what we're having for dinner." And then he's like, "Well, it's dinner time now." I'm like, "No, it's 7 in the morning." He's like, "It's not 7 at night." I'm like, "No, it's not." So let me go back to sleep.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a lot, I think that even though I didn't necessarily embrace the organized religion that I grew up in, I really live by the faith and values, and that centers me a lot as well, because I always, my favorite saying, "This too shall pass." And I know that no matter how hard things may get, God is not going to give me anything that I can't handle.
Yeah.
Because I've been through some crap, and I've come out the other end,
Yep.
and whole and successful in ways that I never even imagined.
Right. And holding on to that wild imagination of success, it also grounds you, right? It helps you to put in perspective the point that you said, like, don't get lost in a job, because jobs come and go, right? But family in your circle does not always.
Yeah.
I think I talked about this in a previous episode. I actually spent probably the last 7 years head down in my job because I thought it was what I had to do.
Yeah.
I couldn't see anything else. Even though I was raising young children, I was in a marriage and with my partner for many years. I just wanted to be the best leader and show up for this community because I'm born and raised in this community. So everything that I do, I want to make sure is successful, and that there are so many other residual like outcomes that are positive because of my inputs. And I just got lost in it. And at some point, with everything that I was carrying, all of the stuff that was happening at home, all of the things with my mom is a very sick woman, and caring for her does require a lot. And I have acknowledged that I don't have capacity to carry for her. And digging deeper into what does that even mean, capacity, it's actually, I don't really want to, because I'm afraid of what will happen in caring for her. And at the end of it, I lose her, right? I'm afraid to put in all of this work to fail. And that is a very similar sentiment to my job. I've been working so hard to try to put so much into building better systems and making better connections and doing right by young people. But then I did a panel interview for Miss Juneteenth this year.
Oh.
14 or 12 beautiful, beautiful young women, grades 8 through 12 or 11. And every single one of their stories was exactly the same story I had 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, that whole notion of outworking, being able to outwork anybody really came to a screeching halt for me when I was diagnosed with lupus, my second year of being a vice president. And it was so bad that I really thought I was going to have to take a medical retirement. And fortunately was able, through connections, to get to the right rheumatologist and kidney doctor, because it had damaged my kidney. And then, like 6 months later, rheumatoid arthritis. And so mobility impacted. And then it's like, okay, I've got to really rethink this notion of just work until you drop, because I'm about to drop.
Yeah.
And I started a regimen of self-care. And so I do, I take vacations because I never took vacations. So I started with, I'm going to take time off. I do massage every 3 weeks, and I do acupuncture once a month.
Okay.
Of course, I haven't done what my doctor wants me to do, which is exercise and lose weight. I haven't mastered that yet. Sure. But doing those things allowed me to get back to a point where I could function and be productive. But also, I just decided, I am going to learn to live with this. I am not going to just sit home and be sick with this. So it's like, I'm going to do the things I need to do. But in order to do that, I have to take care of myself. Yeah. And I've got to make sure that I'm consistently, if I'm feeling tired, I need to take the time to, which was hard.
No, yeah.
It's still hard.
It's still hard.
It is still extremely hard.
Of taking time off. I feel like parallel, but just a few years behind, because taking time off has always been a foreign object to me. Because I didn't want to go back to where I've been. I felt like I had to work. I had to prove myself. I had to ensure that you saw my value. I had to, be the one that everyone can count on. And in some ways, I think that that's good, but not to the point where it harms your
Right.
physical well-being. And that is a lesson that I am actively working in. And it's challenging to figure out how to
and
do that.
I still feel like I'm learning that lesson, because there are times when I will push myself and more than I should. And if you talk to my husband, he would tell you I push myself all the time, but I know that I do less than I used to.
For sure.
And that I do say a lot. I say no to a lot more than I would have said in the past, just because I can't do it. But I would say yes all the time because I felt like I had to be out there, had to be seen as being, in charge and successful. And now I'm like, maybe that comes with age, because as I've aged through this, I'm now 62 and have lived with this for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So, after age 50, I was like, you know what? I have worked.
I put my time in.
I have worked hard my entire life.
Okay.
Yeah, tell me about it. It's like, I don't need to be proving myself over and over again.
I live for that day.
Yeah, it just happened one day. It's the same way I stopped dyeing my hair. So I went gray at 18.
Okay.
And when I turned 40, I was like, I'm not dyeing my hair ever again.
Let it
Talk about freedom.
Yes.
And so I think some of it comes with time and being successful. And I will say one of the many blessings that I had was when I was diagnosed with lupus, and I went to tell the president, because I was a vice president, and I went to tell him, and he definitely doesn't have a reputation of being a thoughtful and kind and caring man. But he did say to me, he says, one of the best things you can do is not come to work and take care of yourself. You'll be better able to lead your team and do the work if you take care of yourself. And I thought it was so insightful, and I will always be grateful to him for, even though that's not his reputation, giving me the permission to take care of myself.
Permission. Okay, let's, for just a minute. I don't know what it is. Perhaps it's because of our long-standing history in America as Black people. Perhaps it's because we, particularly as Black women, have had to carry the load and have had to be on and do what it takes in order for families to thrive or for us to have a comfortable living. Or perhaps it's because we've been working to prove ourselves. But there is something for me that I feel like I need permission to before I can do. Notice, particularly around this permission, is like I felt like I've needed permission to rest. I felt like I've needed for someone to say, like, it's okay. You don't have to carry this. You can take some time off. You can. And I felt like absent having that, I wasn't allowed to. Like, my purpose was not to be comfortable or privileged to. And I just... It's coming up for me in this moment as you say that, but I think that that's something that a lot of people are stuck with.
Well, I still think I'm stuck with it in some sense, because as every new supervisor, which has usually been some other president, has come into my life, I've gone through this thing. Should I do FMLA? Because I've never done FMLA to take like intermittent leave.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I should file and I've actually gotten the paperwork through presidential transitions. And I'm like, and we're just getting a new president. He starts in a couple weeks. And I find myself doing the same thing. Should I go and do the FMLA paperwork so that I can have the...
Do it. Do it. Permission granted.
Well, part of it is, it's like, okay, I'm not working 24 hours a day because... It's so interesting because two of our senior leaders at UW just sent out notices last week saying they're leaving their jobs. And both of them said it's because they feel like now is the time to step away so that they can have a life again.
Yeah.
They are mothers, mothers with young children, and that the jobs are 24-hour jobs, and that they really feel like now this is the time for them to take another position that will allow them not to work 24 hours. And I said, since the diagnosis with lupus, I definitely don't work 24 hours a day. I'm on call 24 hours a day,
Yep.
but I don't work
Yep.
the same way that I used to. But I'm concerned that a new supervisor who doesn't know me or who doesn't know my reputation for getting things done may be like, she's not at, all these events.
You know what? I think there's the pause because you are a very tenured, seasoned woman in your career. You can say that. Right. I think that there is, and I want to call it out. This is me giving myself permission because I used to be very thoughtful about I don't want to offend anybody when I say this, but I'm going to say it. You have earned your ability to say, I don't need, nor am I going to be on 24 hours a day because I will actually get the job done and probably do it even better than if people were working 24 hours a day. But there's this new generation of workers, in my estimation, who believe they're entitled to that same position, but haven't put in the work.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yes.
And I'm not saying that they don't do the work that they should be doing. And I'm not saying that we need to be a grind culture where you do have to work 24 hours a day in order to prove that stuff. That's not it at all. But there is something about having deep contextual understanding for the landscape and the work that you're in, making the connections and the relationships in order to actually do the work that's supposed to be done. And then really being thoughtful and strategic about how do I lay it all out there because I'm spending hours trying to figure it out. Not I have a time boundary of an hour and a half for a meeting. If it doesn't get done then it doesn't get done. Like what? So I think that there is something about that. And I'm kind of in the middle, right? I'm not quite where you are, but I have put in a lot of work where I have sat for hours on one topic, days, weeks even, on one thing, and didn't stop until I got that right. And today people are just ready to move on. It doesn't work. This is wrong. This isn't it. Move on. How do you ever actually fully understand or get to a place of change if you're so quick to move?
Right. It is it's definitely generational because I do feel like I'm an old school person. So, the return to work thing was one of them. I'm like, you got to put in the FaceTime because if I'm not seeing you, you're not in my. I'm not seeing you as someone I can rely on. I will say that one of the life lessons that I learned as a leader is if I can build a strong team and trust them to do what they need to do, then that also gives me freedom to take time off, to take care of myself. And I learned that after being a vice president and being sick and I had to rely on other people to get things done. But then once I gave them the freedom to do what they shine. And if they didn't shine, then they needed to move on. And I was very clear. I'm very clear in that if you're not doing what I need you to do, then this is probably not the right bus for you. But once I have the team, I'm like, I trust them to do what they need to do, and they shine.
I love that.
And that actually gives me a lot more freedom or privilege to be off, to not be on all the time.
So let me ask this, and going back to a little bit where we started, we were having this dinner, you were carrying a lot just this spring, and I think the current conditions of our field, social service, education, is not only under high scrutiny by those who know very little, perhaps, about the field in and of itself, but also for those who have opinions about how it could be better, who believe that if they were in your seat, that they could do your job. And I'm curious, with all that you were carrying, maybe if you want to even speak to that, but then in that, what you were carrying and dealing with those people, how did you manage that? What did that look like for you?
Well, I told you, I'm very good at compartmentalizing. So, dealing with losing my mom and then all of the family dynamics that came along with that. At the same time, I'm dealing with all of these presidential executive orders. I mean, we lost half of our research funding at UW-Tacoma already.
Whack.
Yes. And everything that we do in terms of equity and social justice is under attack.
Yep.
And so, have to go to work and be on top of all of that while dealing with grief. And my stepson, I told you, had addiction issues. The same day that my mom died, he OD'd and tried to kill himself. And so it's like, okay, I'm, trying to deal with all of these things. And so that happened on a Saturday, and I had all these meetings Monday to Wednesday. And I finally was like, I can't go to work.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am not functional. And so I reached out to my team and I said, hey, just want you all to know, I didn't even tell them about my stepson. I said, my mom died.
Yep.
And I'm just not in a good space to be able to come to work. And so I need you all to cancel. This is how bad I am. I need you to cancel my meetings for like Monday and Tuesday. I'll be in on Wednesday.
Take the week.
And I did. I was like, no, because part of dealing with that kind of trauma and emotional stuff that was going on was like, work for me is actually now, because I have so much issues with my husband and caregiving, work is actually predictable and restful as opposed to my personal life. Yep. My personal life is just chaotic.
Yeah.
And so it's like work is a little chaotic now with all the federal stuff going on, but I know how to handle and work through that. In some ways, the lack of knowledge about how to deal with, mental illness and addiction issues and a lot of family dysfunctional family dynamics. I don't know how to deal with that. But I know how to balance the budget. I know how to set a vision and have a shared, shared goals, and I know how to collaborate to get things done. But
dealing with the messy, I've shared this with the people, and at some point we'll go deeper into this in a future episode. But there was a time where my marriage was very questionable, and work was my escape. I couldn't wait to be on a plane somewhere. I couldn't wait to have a late night meeting. It was like, if I can be there and not be dealing with this, then I would be on. And I was finding myself overperforming and very much in it and taking on all of the things and saying yes to everything because it helped me to not have to deal with the messy, which in hindsight, wrong. Not okay. We've got to really think through this. And so as I'm coming out on this other side of it, I'm finding that, in fact, I have to lean more into not just my marriage, but my family to look to those people to help me deal with the things that are on both sides, both personal and professional. My mom said to me just yesterday, I'm only trying to look out for you. I'm not here to criticize you or make you feel bad. I want to make sure that you are always at your best. And what I heard when she first started this conversation was critique. Got it. I'm critiqued every day. I don't need another. And
I don't need to come home.
I don't need to come home to this. What do you want? Right. But then as she finally got to it, I thought, okay, I received that. And I do want to hear that so that I can be better. But it is about approach. It is about communication. It is about messaging. And I think we live in such a time in which things are just moving so fast. Folks are making decisions on very limited, not always informed information, where you scroll through social media and it could be beautiful butterflies and the next one can be bombs in Gaza. How does the brain actually reconcile those two extremes in life? And I think that resting and really taking time to reflect and to be introspective is part of how we get to a better way of healing, right? And so everything that you're sharing here is so important, and I think timely for this current state of where things are. But I'm curious, what else are you doing? You talked a little bit about self-care. And I think that those are great. But what else are you doing for yourself that helps you to mentally just release?
Part of it is prioritizing family and friends time, because I could work 24 hours a day. I could have events. I'm leaving here, going to an event. I could have events. I could have a dinner every night.
Yeah.
I could have a breakfast, a lunch every day with the donor. And in fact, when I was doing my performance review for my advancement person, one of the things she asked for was more time. But I have prioritized time with my family and friends and people that I care about, and that I make sure that I get to spend time with them and have that joy, because it's a lot of joy in spending time with people that I choose to spend. Now, I have to spend time with my sisters who drive me nuts. That's not joyful.
So I think, as we're wrapping up here, thank you so much for just sharing a little bit about who you are, who Sheila is outside of work, who Sheila is outside of family. You're a whole person, but you have been learning and growing and are still learning and still growing. But with every lesson that you've learned, you can take something from it and impart it on people like myself or those who are watching. So I want to thank you for that. I also want to just name again, the weight that we carry is heavy. And a point you made earlier about carrying the load can have a negative effect on us, on our health. Mentally, we can get to a place of decision fatigue or an inability to be functional in our work, that we just have to take rest. And I think that permission is what folks need to be able to just not only hear, but begin to embody. I need to begin to embody. Like, you can rest. You can take the time. You don't have to be on. That job is going to be there. This world is going to be crazy tomorrow as it is today. So give yourself a little bit of a break to be able to do that. So thank you for sharing that.
And then surround yourself with people who also believe that and will give you the grace. I mean, that's like my favorite word. It's like, I need people who are going to give me grace. And then in turn, I always try and give grace to other folks to understand that they're not necessarily at the same place that I'm at. They may be dealing with, the same kind of crap that I'm dealing with. And I will say in my leadership journey, that's been one of the most impactful lessons, is that all of us are flawed in some way and are going through something.
All of us.
And even though you may not be able to see it because that person looks like they've just got it all together, when you peel back that onion, we are all dealing with something. There is no one on this planet who doesn't have issues that they need to deal with in their personal and professional life. And that actually gives me a lot of solace also, because I'm like, I am not the only one.
You're not. Thank you. And I'm not. The number of people who've reached out since launching this podcast who have said, I am beginning to interrogate the things that I've been hiding from myself and from others, and thanking me just for feeling like they have that space, is because we all have something, but we show up in a certain kind of way. We know, especially for Black people, we have to always be on, because we don't get the luxury of just walking out of our doors with t-shirts and flip-flops on and going into a board meeting. Like, like I don't even have to explain further. And I think that is why we have shown up the way that we have. But at this big generational age in America, it's time for us, though, to start prioritizing ourselves. And I think that there is something beautiful that can happen collectively when we start to really report on ourselves, and grace, what you said, that grace. And that has to be genuine, authentic grace, not I understand, but that doesn't work, right? It has to be like, I understand, hard stop, and walk away. And I think that we've got to give ourselves some of that, because we need it.
Even when we don't get it. And a lot of times as leaders, you don't get it.
No.
You don't get that grace.
Actually.
So, I try and give it and hope that I will get some of it in return. Always a little bit nervous, and maybe I won't, but at the end of the day, I give a lot of grace to people.
Sheila, I see you. I admire you. You will always have grace with me. I think you came into a community and an institution having to really do a lot of change management in community and within the institution. You also deal with a larger institution that has a lot of
Oh, my
politics
goodness, yes.
that you have to deal with. And I think you carry that very well. But I also think you deserve to just have a moment to just release and just like choose yourself and to be okay in your decisions. You've come this far and you've gotten to this place because of your brilliance. And I think that that is worth celebrating. And so thank you for joining us on the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having
Each
me.
week we'll continue to unpack stories like this. Each week we'll talk about the challenges and intersection of being a leader and in trying to heal, but also trying to stay on and have grace with one another, with ourselves, but with each other. And so continue to like and subscribe, share with your friends. I hope that this podcast will resonate with you all in a way that gets you to think about how you are doing your own releasing, how you're giving yourself grace, how you're saying it's okay and giving permission to take time off because we all deserve it. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.